I just want to take a moment and, gentlemen, we love you. What would we do without the men, right? Thank you for your awesomeness. We love you. But, today I want to speak to the hearts of the women here in this room. And, God has put something on my spirit. I feel like this message is for every woman, that He, in this season, is calling the mothers to arise. And, there's something very special about women. And if you are familiar with the creation story, you'll be maybe aware that God created the universe. He created the world, everything in it. He created Adam. And at every point at His creation, He looks at it and He says, it is good. But even in that season where He's made all of this good, God Himself notices an area that is not good. He says in Genesis 2 verse 18, it is not good for man to be alone. There was a not good situation happening. I will make him a helper who is comparable to him. And it says that He caused Adam to go into a deep sleep, and He's searching Adam's heart for the blueprint of just who this helper comparable to him would be, who this one that would bring good out of a situation that was currently not good would be. And from that blueprint, ladies, He created us. He created you. Come on, you can give God some praise. He did a pretty good job, right? It says Adam was made from the dust of the earth. Women weren't made out of dirt, right? I think you can tell. We were created by Adam's own flesh from one of his ribs, the upgraded version, right? So we have got this special power. We were born for a reason. We were born with purpose, born to help, born to bring completion to the purpose of God, born to bring good in situations where there is not good. And when the name that Adam called this woman is actually a reflection of those attributes. And these attributes are present in the heart and the life and the DNA of every woman. It says that He called her life spring, life giver. Genesis 3 verse 20, the man named his wife Eve, which means life spring, life giver, because she was the mother of all the living. And those qualities of life-giving and life-springing and even being a mother, they were present in Eve's life before she'd actually physically given birth. They're present in every single woman. And mothering is completely different from giving birth. Giving birth is a physical act, but mothering is a commitment. Anyone know what I'm talking about? For the rest of your life, no matter how old the kids are, you are their mum. It is a responsibility. Mothering is a decision to rise in our divine authority that God has entrusted to women, to care for, nurture, bring out the best, bring out completion of God's purpose, and to bring out the good in the not good situations around us. That is what mothering is, different from giving birth. You can give God some praise. So when I was preparing this message and I was just saying, God, what do you want me to say? And I just felt God say, tell my daughters that it's time for them to rise as mothers. Tell them to arise as mothers. So I was just meditating on that, and there is a book in the Bible, some chapters in the book of Judges that talk about women arising as mothers. And this is the story of Deborah that's told in Judges 4-5. And you can read it later, it won't take you very long. But just to summarize, this is a season where the nation of Israel has been under continual attack from the nation of Canaan. Jabin, the Canaanite king, has been relentlessly attacking and oppressing Israel for more than 20 years. His army general is a guy called Sisera, and it says that he was ruthless and very cruel in his continual oppression of God's people. says that the voice of fear in Israel had become so loud and so continuous that all trading had ceased in Israel, or work, farming activity, none of it happening. Village life came to a halt. People stopped traveling on the main roads. They were hiding out in their homes. Does any of this sound a little bit familiar to anyone? Even the leaders of God's people were so intimidated and bound by fear that they shrunk back, and they were too afraid to stand against the oppression coming against them. And we only have to think back to the lockdowns of last year to imagine what that would have been like. With workplaces closed, the voice of fear being pumped out repeatedly, continually, amplified, shop doors closed, people shut down in their homes, isolated and alone. Friends, what is the first thing that God noticed was not good? Mankind all on his own. And in Genesis 2, when mankind was on his own, who arose? Who was called forth? A woman was called forth. A woman, a life giver, to arise in that situation. And that exact same thing is happening now in a place where mankind is isolated, fearful, and all alone. God is calling women to arise. This is your season. This is your purpose. It says in Judges 5, verses 5 to 7, in the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were deserted, and travelers went by roundabout ways. The villages ceased to be. Village life ceased in Israel until I, Deborah, arose. Until I arose, a mother in Israel. Until I arose as a mother. I was thinking about this. In a season of oppression and continual attack, why didn't a warrior arise? Why wasn't it an incredible military general that arose? Why wasn't it a great national leader or a diplomat that arose? Why did God cause a mother to arise? And I was thinking about this because there's something special about mums, right? Mums have got mum tricks. Anyone got a few mum tricks? We've got our ways of getting the kids and the people to do what we want them to do when they don't actually want to do it, right? And then we've got the mum chats. Those situations where we just sit our kids down and we call them out on their stuff. We remind them of who they really are when they're not behaving like it and they don't want to hear about it, but deep down they know that it's because that we love them. Mothers are more interested in the journey and health than they are necessarily in outcomes. I reflect on Andrew and I in our parenting. Andrew's all about hitting the goals. Are they still alive? And have they got something in their tummy? But I'm like, no, it's not just are they still alive? Are they healthy? No, they're not going out 3 nights in a row. They need to be home and get some good sleep. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe they've got food in their tummy, but does it have any nutritional value? No more McDonald's. You're not going through the drive-thru at KFC. No. This is what a mother does, right? Maybe Andrew will let them be, they're 18 now, sorry, Sammy, but I was going to say parented more or babysat more by a screen, but I'm like, oh no. School holidays, maybe you can sit and play PlayStation or watch Netflix for I've got grace for about a day. But after that, I'm in that room going, right, turn off the PlayStation, no more Netflix. You need to get outside, get some fresh air. It's not healthy for you to stay looking at a screen in the dark. Read a book, play basketball, jump in the surf. This is what mums do. And this is why the world is needing some mothers to arise. I remember when I finished my HSC and I was all emotionally spent, I'm just on my HSC, it was so stressful. And my whole social world had imploded. All that social structure, do you know what I'm talking about? School, you're surrounded by people, you've got your friends, your activities, and suddenly nothing. And then my normal routine was disrupted. I didn't have that certainty and security of school life anymore. I had started a full-time job. I was studying part-time at uni, and I was so stressed, like uni so hard. And I became this hermit. And I would just be in my room in the dark. I stopped exercising. I stopped going out with my friends. I was so stressed and anxious about uni and work, and I stopped taking care of myself. And my mum tolerated it for a while. But I remember the day she walked into my room and she's like, "Right, young lady, this is enough. It's time to get out of your room. When was the last time you washed your hair? My gosh, is that food on your shirt?" And it's like, "Yes, I've got to study, but I've got to eat." She's like, "You used to care about your appearance. Now look at you." Like, this is what mums say, right? We have the straight talk. She said to me, "Janine, this behavior is not who you are. And you are too young to be living like this. You've got your whole life ahead of you. You need to get out there and start living it. And you can start by opening the curtains, getting some fresh air into this room, and going and have a shower and wash your hair." It's like brutal. But it was just what I needed, right? The mum chat, where she gives you a kick in the pants and step-by-step instructions on what to do next. Like, we love our mums, right? Come on, give mums a round of applause. I'm here because of my mum. So I'm thinking about Judges 4 and 5, what's happening in Israel. And I'm thinking that at that time, Israel was feeling a little bit discombobulated, right? They'd lost their way a little bit. It's been years and years of oppression, years and years of fear and attack, and I don't know who I am anymore. I'm so stressed. And it is no surprise to me that the sound that signaled the beginning of a new season of victory and breakthrough, the sound that heralded that good was about to come to a situation that was not good, was not a trumpet blast. It wasn't a ram's horn. It was the sound of a mother. "Kids, turn off the PlayStation. Israel, it's time to get out of your rooms. Sons and daughters of God, it is time to stop hiding and living in fear. This behavior is not who you are. You've got a big God. You've got a bright future. You've got your whole life ahead of you. It is time to get out there and start living it. Come on, mothers. It's time to arise." So why do we need the mums to arise? My first thought is this: because our mums call us out and they remind us of who we really are. My mum called out my stuff. She wasn't buying my excuses. And she forced me to confront the consequences of my decisions in that moment. And, that is what I needed to hear. It says in Judges 4, 6-9, Deborah sent for Barak, who was the leader of the Israel army, and said to him, "It has become clear that God, the God of Israel, commands you. Go to Mount Tabor and prepare for battle. Take 10 companies of soldiers from Naphtali and Zebulun. I'll take care of getting Sisera, the leader of Jabin's army, to the Kishon River with all his chariots and troops, and I'll make sure you win the battle." Barak said, "I will go with you. If you go with me, I'll go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go." And Deborah said, "Of course I'll go with you. But understand that with an attitude like that, young man, there will be no glory in it for you. God will use a woman's hand to take care of Sisera." Spoken like a true mum. See, God, the Lord of heaven's armies, is speaking to a leader of Israel's army, to Barak, and he's saying, "I am calling you to lead an army into victory, to see freedom come to my people. But Barak's not listening to that voice. He's listening to another voice. He's listening to his fears. He's listening to his insecurities. He's listening to the past experience that has hurt and damaged him. He's listening to the wrong voice. And he probably had a lot of good reasons to. But Deborah wasn't buying it. She wasn't buying those excuses. She calls him out and she tells him, well, with an attitude like that, it's not going to get you very far. And you're going to miss out on the personal victory that God has for you. You know, God is going to cause people to rise up in this season. He's not going to sit and watch suffering and oppression. But the question each one of us needs to answer for ourselves is, will we receive that victory personally? And we can only choose to listen to God's voice ourselves. No one can make us do it. You know, we all have excuses to justify our bad behavior, right? We've all got our reasons why we're not doing the things we know we should, why we're not stepping up and taking responsibility and being reliable. We've got a whole bunch of excuses to justify that. But an excuse is just a lie that comes packaged in a reason. I can't turn up, I can't be involved in that, I can't engage, I can't come out of my house, I can't, whatever it is, because, you know what, I'm married, I'm not married, I've got kids, I don't have kids, I'm really busy at work. But we know, if we are just brutally honest with ourselves, the reason we are not stepping up in this season and taking responsibility, getting involved, engaging, has got nothing to do with those things. It's simply that, you know, I just can't be bothered. You know, could it be that we've become a little bit apathetic and complacent? Is it possible, friends, that we've become a little bit self-focused? And all of the restrictions and the COVID stuff that's going on, could it be that we're just using that as a very convenient camouflage to hide what is really going on in our heart? That, like Barak, we have lost our fear of God. God is not the loudest voice. And in place of the fear of God, fear of everything else has risen up. Yeah, you can give God some praise. I'm being a mum here today, and it's because I love you. You know, and I feel like God saying the same thing to us, church, as my mum said to me in my bedroom all those years ago. This behavior, church, is not who you are. The way that we've been acting, it's not who we are. This self-focus, it's not who you are. And friends, we are too young to be living like this. We've got stuff to do. You know, I am all about anti-aging. You know, I'm turning 50 this year, and I refuse to let COVID-19 or anything else accelerate my aging process. Do you know what I'm talking about? Whatever it takes, like Botox, I think is great. I do have to manually raise my eyebrows every now and then, but, you know, whatever it takes. But, you know, even more powerful at anti-aging than Botox is enthusiasm. Getting out there, getting involved, having a go, being with people and celebrating them and cheering them on and doing what we've been called to do ourselves. That is the most powerful anti-aging product there is. I'm not going to sit around in my house, friends. You are too young to be bound in your house, living in fear, looking at screens, living in some kind of alternate universe, technological world when there's a real present life, real physical people waiting to be loved, waiting for your gift to be released, waiting for the encouragement you can bring, waiting for the strength and support you can bring. Come on, we are too young to be living like this. We are not going to age before our time. That kind of behavior, when you're beyond 90, maybe you can think about sitting around in front of a screen, but I am planning on being strong until the very end. I've got too much to do. Do you know what the good thing about this season is? All of our favorite TV shows are on catch-up TV, right? The cats of YouTube aren't going anywhere. So we can get out and do stuff and go home and still watch our shows and still watch the crazy cats on YouTube, right? It's the perfect season to get out there. We need to shift our focus from our worries and ourselves. Gosh, that's not healthy, people. Shift them onto God. Have a bigger perspective and a brighter outlook. We've got victories ahead of us. We've got amazing, fruitful, productive relationships to engage in. A whole lot of fun and adventure awaits. Friend, only we can choose to step into it. You know, Deborah rose as a mother. She called Barak out, but she did it like a mother. She didn't emasculate him. She didn't condemn him. She didn't preach at him. She just said, okay, I'm just going to show you the consequence of your decision and say, you know what, I believe that there's a different future for you. She cared about him and she came alongside him. You know, that's what mothers do. We don't go, step aside, I'll take it from here. We come alongside. She rode alongside Barak until he was confident enough in his own identity, until his faith has risen. His faith in God was higher than the fear that surrounded him. And when he was able to stand on his own 2 feet, says Judges 4-16 that Barak chased the chariots and the enemy army all the way to somewhere I can't pronounce, killing all of Sisera's warriors. Not a single one was left. Deborah didn't do that. Deborah wasn't by his side. He did that on his own. He came into an understanding of his own identity because he had a mum who came alongside him, who didn't buy his rubbish, but who believed in him and told him the truth with love in her heart. Friend, that is our job, women. That is our job. It is time for mothers to arise. You know, my next thought is that the reason that God is calling mums to arise is because mums know how to hide the veggies. We do, right? You know, we've got the mum tricks, okay? Plenty of mum tricks. My boys, especially my youngest son, was like, no, I'm not eating leaves. No, I'm not eating vegetables. I'm like, I don't care. I just know that there's a grated carrot, a grated zucchini, and a can of lentils in every ground meat dish that child's ever eaten. So that's what we do. We get the good food, we grate it up, we hide it in the meat, we cover it in cheese. The kids are like, this lasagna's great. You're like, yes, it is, and it's full of vegetables, what you need. You know, in Israel, when I think about this, they were living on a diet of spiritual junk food. But Deborah was living on a different, more nutritional diet. Israel were hiding in their homes, listening to fear. But it says that Deborah wasn't hiding in her house. Judges 4-5. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophet who was judging Israel at the time. She would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites would go to her for judgment. She's not hiding in her house. She's sitting on a hill under a palm tree, out in the open, not listening to fear, but listening instead to the voice of Almighty God. And people would come to her for advice and wisdom and instruction. And friend, she knew how to feed them what they really needed. She didn't buy into their fear. She didn't agree with their offenses. She didn't put condemnation on them. She told them what God was saying. And she could only do that because she herself was hearing what God was saying. Friend, Deborah was a leader. She led like a mother through incredible influence. And we cannot lead people to places that we have not been ourselves. We cannot feed them a diet that we are not eating ourselves. And for us to be able to be women who rise as mothers, we need to think about, well, if I'm going to feed my kids good food, I need to be feeding on good food myself. Because, you know, I learned this the hard way, that it's not what you say, but what you do that your children replicate, right? In our Connect group last week, we were talking about, like, swear words, like what actually constitutes a swear word, like is bum. or shut up, a swear word, or someone said yes. I just said it into a microphone, so I think I know where I stand on that. Sorry, Denise. But, parenting my kids, and I was always like, you're going to use nice language, you're going to be respectful, no swearing, definitely no curse words. But how many people know, like, little kids, married to anyone, life, some less than ideal words pop out of your mouth every now and then. And so I didn't realize just what was coming out of my mouth until my little boys started saying the exact same things. And how many people know they say it at the most inappropriate times? In front of the most righteous, holy people who are like shocked, and you're like, oh my gosh, those pesky neighbor kids, they're such a bad influence. But I knew what they were saying was exactly what they were hearing me say it. Not just the words, but the tone and the way they delivered it. Oh, they were just copying me. So I thought, you know what, I need to lift my game here. I need to get my act together. To rise as mothers, we might need to lift our game in a few areas, get our act together. Because what we see being modeled in our kids or the people around us is actually a reflection of the behaviors that they are learning from us. One of my greatest moments, well, greatest, that's a stretch maybe, but, I remember Johnny, the child who refuses to eat vegetables, and said to me, Mum, I've got two stomachs, one that's this big for anything healthy, and one that's this big for sugar, and it's never full, Mum, it's never full. And he said to me last year, Mum, I want to eat what you eat because I want to get healthy. Will you help me get healthy? Will you help me get a six-pack? And I was like, "Don't." But he came to me like Deborah sitting under the palm tree. She's not going out preaching in the street. She's sitting there listening to God, and the people are seeing something different about her life and the wisdom and the authority that she stands in, and they're thinking, you know what, I need some of that. I'm going to go have a chat with Deborah. And, I'm not a health freak or anything, but I do know I've got stuff to do, and I can't do it if my body lets me down, so I've got to look after this body. And so Johnny noticed, okay, I want to get healthy. I'm going to go have Mum and eat what she eats. Like, friends, we need to hide the veggies. This is not about lecturing. There's no preaching if you read Judges 4 and 5. Deborah not once preaches or gives a lecture. All she does is tell people what God is saying. Friend, we're going to hear what God is saying. We're going to deliver it in palatable, kind ways that our family, our friends, the people around us can receive. And they're going to receive more than anything else from the way we live our lives. We do not need to preach a message when our lives are the message. Can you give God some praise? I want to pray for women today. But, I was thinking, there are reasons and obstacles to mums rising, to women rising as mothers. One of the first obstacles, and I think at some level we all are confronted with this, is a self-belief. Like, we've got a belief system that I can't be responsible, I'm not a mother, or I don't have what it takes. For me, I didn't even realize this. I remember beautiful Kay Jones a little while ago gave me a story about the book of Deborah. And she highlighted these things, and she said, Janine, this is like you, and thank you for being our Deborah. And I received it, and I was like, wow, thank you. But I didn't realize, Kay, through the Holy Spirit, was confronting a damaged self-belief that I had. Because, in the story of Deborah in Judges, if you know that story, I was familiar with it, but I didn't see myself as a Deborah. When I know that story, I resonated more with Jael. And Jael was right at the end of the story when the Canaanite army has been defeated, and Sisera, the army general, is running off looking for somewhere to hide. Jael invites him into her tent. He asks for a glass of water. She gives him some creamy milk, snuggles him into a blanket, and when he is fast asleep, she drives a tent peg into his head. Now, I'm vibing with JL. Hospitality and violence. I get JL. One time, Andrew found a pair of scissors in our bed, and I'd just been wrapping Christmas presents, right? There was nothing sinister, but he was all like, "What are the scissors doing in the bed? What plans do you have?" And I was like, "Baby, that's actually my mercy gift in operation. You can rest assured that I will always wait until you are fast asleep before I pull out my scissors. Can I sing you a lullaby, honey?" I get JL. She's my homegirl. Deborah, not so much. Like rising in responsibility as a mother, overcoming this evil, oppressive army that they haven't been able to defeat for more than 20 years. Like, I don't think I've got what it takes. I don't think I can do that. And I had to confront a belief that I had. When I was little, I've got 4 sisters. I'm the middle. And for some reason, I don't know why this conversation always came up, but it did. And it was like this serious conversation that your parents have with you. And it's like a form of parental Jedi mind control. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's serious, there's intense eye contact. And the conversation was always this: girls, if anything was to happen to your mother and I, or if anything was ever to happen to your father and I, depending on who's speaking, Linda, my oldest sister, you are responsible for looking after Leanne, my younger sister. Julie, you are responsible for looking after my baby sister, Alana. And I would sit there with the seriousness, waiting for the responsibility to fall on me of what is going to be said next. But then the conversation would be over. And I would be like, sweet, I got out of that easy. I'm as free as a bird. I'm not responsible for anyone. And that is the way I live my life. Independent, self-sufficient, the wind beneath my own wings. Like, I don't need anyone. And Kay confronted something. I don't need anyone. I'm not responsible for anyone. And God was saying, that's not true. That is not consistent with my word. The first thing God said about mankind, it is not good for us to be alone. That independent, we need to have a level of being able to get stuff done on our own and not needy, but isolated, independent, completely self-sufficient, keeping people at arm's length, it is not good, it is not healthy. It's not consistent with God's word. For me as a woman to help and to come alongside, to bring out God's best in other people, I can't do that if I'm not connecting with other people. And any voice or any belief that is not consistent with the word of God, it is not God's voice. There are other voices. We have an enemy whose objective is to rob, kill, and to destroy. And I, without even realizing it, had been living my life listening to a lie that was trying to rob me of joy and relationship and connection, rob me of vulnerability and allowing myself to be open with people, destroy the purpose and potential of God in my life, and limit what God was asking me to do, because I can do so much, but I hit a ceiling, and I need you. I need people. Friend, maybe you've got a self-belief around rising in responsibility that needs to be confronted, and that you need to allow God's voice into that area to bring healing and restoration and strength, because we need each other. The other area that I think we all need to confront to be able to rise as a mother in this season is having a misunderstanding of God's methods. And, like Chrissy said, Mother's Day can be a sad day. It can be a reminder of what we've lost, what we don't have, what hasn't happened yet and we're still waiting for. And God's purpose is for every woman to rise as a mother. And so often we confuse giving birth with mothering, but they're two very different things. And in the book of Deborah, it makes no mention that Deborah has any natural children at all. She wasn't a mother because she had kids. She was a mother because she made a decision to rise, to bring good to a situation that was not good. Eve was called a mother before she'd even given birth. And we all have authority as women to be a life giver, to be a good bringer. And the method through which we become a mother is in God's hands. But his plan is for all of us to rise as mothers. His plan is for us to rise, but we do not get to choose the method. You know, you might be a little familiar with some of my story, and when I married Andrew, the first thing he said to me, or actually before I said yes, he said because of his medical treatments that he couldn't have kids. And I just remember being certain it's going to be, I'm going to have a baby because God physically healed him, so he's physically going to heal that other part of him and I'm going to give birth. No question in my mind. But my journey did not look like that. And through many miracles, and I've got permission from my beautiful son to share this, we adopted my handsome prince, Sammy, who made me a physical mother. He's almost 19 years ago. But it was quite a traumatic process going through that adoption journey, so I was a bit traumatized. And I remember being in a mum's room at church with Sammy, and it came up. I think people were telling their birth stories. I didn't have a birth story. So it came up that Sammy was adopted, and one of the women said something, and she wasn't meaning anything bad at all. I knew that. But she said, well, I'm going to pray and that you can become pregnant and become a real mother. And it was just a terrible choice in words, but that you're not a real mother kind of stuck with me. You know, the enemy is real, and he will do everything he can to discredit, invalidate, and undermine what God is doing in our lives. And I thought, that's it. I'm not going to try and adopt any more babies. God, if you want me to have more children, you need to put one in my tummy, or my uterus, technically. But I was at a conference, and I just felt the presence of God. I closed my eyes. I saw a picture of a little child, and I knew that was my child. And behind that baby were other babies. And I heard the voice of God say to me, Janine, the only thing standing between you and your children is your fear and your lack of faith. And if I choose to make you a mother through adoption, it is just as valid and equally as miraculous as if you were to conceive and give birth to a child yourself. It was a mum chat from God. He's good at mum chats, right? So we went through the process, adopted my beautiful son, Johnny, and then coming over here, like it's a bit easier in New Zealand to adopt. It's actually impossible to adopt in Australia. And I knew that we were meant to move to Australia, but we were in the pool in the process of trying to adopt another baby, and I felt like I've got more babies. But we moved to Australia knowing that, okay, all my chances of adopting another baby are gone. Doesn't look like I'm going to conceive a baby. But I've realized that the method that God wants me to mother, like I've got so many beautiful daughters in this wonderful church family, I cannot allow my narrow perspective of what mothering is to limit what God wants to do through my life. Friends, you are called as a mother. And the only thing that stands between us and the children, the spiritual sons and daughters that are crying out for the love of a beautiful mum, is fear and lack of faith. We can get discouraged over the method, but it is valid and it is divine and it is God's purpose for our lives. If I can have the worship team come back, that would be great. You know, mothers, God is calling mothers to arise, to not just sit back passively and watch destruction and despair and fear rule the world, but to rise and take responsibility and to start exercising the divine authority that God has entrusted to us, to bring good into situations that are not good, to bring help where help is needed, to bring God's purpose into completion. Friend, it was not a trumpet blast or a ram's horn that heralded a new season emerging. It was the voice of a mother. And God is calling mothers, arise. Will you arise as a mother? Will you arise?